My name is Andrew Stewart, and I am a member of the Rhode Island Media Cooperative. 2016 has proven to be one of the most eventful years in recent memory. One element that is particularly taking up a substantial level of interest is the issue of minority rights. In a year where groups like Black Lives Matter have been making headlines on a weekly basis, it seems that a great level of political activity and attention is being paid black and brown people and their votes during this election. In order to better understand this group, I have spent the past year talking with voters across America, asking them about both the election and what they hope to hear talked about the day after they cast their ballot. We now present to you the results of those conversations. Ray Rickman is a longtime figurehead in the Providence black community. He previously has served in the Rhode Island legislature and worked in national congressional offices. So, you have been a big Clinton supporter. Can you explain why you think it's a good time to have Hillary Clinton in the White House?
Well, in this election, it's classic. Bernie Sanders and team, Ted Devine, it's really fascinating. They're painting Hillary as bad. And, of course, the Republicans have been doing this for 30 years. And so they're creating this environment in which she's not a good person. And people who don't know her or who don't know of her work, sadly, the Clinton campaign has let Bernie Sanders, in some ways, define her. So an awful lot of young people who don't know about Hillary Clinton and the health care fight when her husband was president of the United States, they're not giving her any credit. And we're lazy. We never look on the internet unless the subject comes up. So they ought to be looking at everybody should be looking at Hillary Clinton the last 35 years. And they're not. And I have met her 3 times. I've followed her for 30 plus years. She is a substantial human being. She's well educated, both in terms of how government functions and how to make government functions. When you're Secretary of State, that is an administrative job of the top order. So she has this experience. I watched her in the Senate, and they're talking about her successes or lack of them. Well, Bernie has the same problem. He doesn't have any substantial legislation. Now, last night I heard one of his advocates, the former state rep from Ohio, talking about all his amendments. Now, Bernie would do that all the time to the Democrats when they were in control. I'm not voting for this unless you put my amendment in. He was the amendment king. And the amendments never changed the legislation. They were just icing on the cake. And so that's what Bernie did. He was the amendment king. And in Vermont, they would kind of suggest that Bernie had passed some big bill when in fact it had 12 parts and he had part 12 and a half. So I don't think Bernie has the administrative experience to be president. She does. Hillary Clinton does. But let me tell you the next problem. You're going to have to deal with that Republican House for sure, and probably a Republican Senate. How do you get anything done? And I don't think that's Bernie Sanders. Also, this is a criticism. The presidency is 1,000 jobs. I don't think Bernie wants 1,000 jobs. Bernie wants to fix the banking system, and he wants to fix income inequality, and I do too. And I praise him for it. I praise him for his pressure on Hillary Clinton to move a little to the left. But I'm interested in early childhood education. I'm interested in the environment. I'm interested in 10 things, not 2 or 3, and Hillary Clinton is as well. And I think she will now produce for the black community, which the Democrats have not done since the passage of the Civil Rights Bills in 64 and 65. I don't think they've done anything substantial for African Americans. And, of course, we vote 90 to 98% Democratic every time. Nobody would be president. Hillary would not be where she is without the black vote. I think she's going to pay. I think she's going to say, you made me president. I'm going to pay attention to your needs, and I'm going to reward you because I would not be president. Uh, I don't believe that of Bernie Sanders. Well, first, it isn't true. Black folks haven't put him over the top any place. In fact, they relegated him to the bottom by voting for Hillary in such large numbers, particularly in the South. So the presidency is a huge administrative job, and then it's a bully pulpit job, and then one or two new endeavors will occur. Obama's big claim to fame for 100 years is going to be Obamacare, and Hillary Clinton will have one or two or three, and I think income equality, particularly for women, will be one of them. And I think an improvement in education will be another one. And I'll be happy.
So, what were your reactions if you had the opportunity to read Michelle Alexander's piece saying the Clintons do not deserve the black vote?
Mm-hmm. So, on Tuesday morning, I can tell you about the plays and the. I don't watch football, but basketball. I can tell you everything about what happened and why, and give you the impression that I knew it on Sunday instead of Tuesday morning.
Mm-hmm.
Monday night game. I don't believe people have crystal balls. And I was mildly involved, probably more than mildly involved in this mass incarceration bill, which is what we call it now. And I'd been in the legislature just before this, and so I knew about these things because Rhode Island Democrats had done them. And my favorite was you get triple the time in jail if you sell drugs within 200 feet of a school. Now, I voted against it for a whole lot of reasons. First one is 90% of folks selling drugs at schools are 17-year-old teenagers. Now, why they should get 3 times the amount of time in jail than the drug dealer standing 2 blocks away who gave them the drugs, I never understood. And then, of course, the person who got the drugs from wherever they got them is 2 miles away in some high rise and never gets arrested. But if they did, they get 1 year for that drug sale. So on the face of it, it was illogical and ridiculous to put the third person in the chain with the least amount of clout, who wasn't bringing the drugs into the country, in jail for 3 times what the big drug dealer would get. And anybody standing there could see that. So I saw it. I remember Congressman John Conyers asking Bernie Sanders not to vote for this. Conyers of Michigan, true progressive. And Bernie, of course, voted for it. Bernie Sanders voted for it. I remember it at the time because I was, new to New. Well, I had been here 10 years in New England, but I just thought this is bad. Now, did I know how bad it was? No, not a clue. I remember on the other end of this, I sat on the parole board until this February, until a month ago, and I saw what this has brought about up close and personal, and saw all of these people, most of them black and Latino, getting double and triple the amount of time that they should have gotten for the crime. And then, this third, committing a crime the third time, you get real time or you can go to the feds. And so you saw what 20, years of this legislation has done. I repeat what I said a minute ago. Nobody was telling us that we are going to fill up the jails. This was a technique to curtail some of the worst crime in American history. It's been going on since probably about 1970, and everybody was tired of it. Now, this isn't the Clinton bill. This is the Republican Party bill, the Clinton bill, the Democratic Party bill, every law enforcement person in this country's bill, and all of these state legislatures, and the American public. There are two polls that I remember saying, one that a third of black people supported it, and another one that half the black people supported it. So this Monday morning quarterbacking is very good to do because we see what the results were. But people did not know it at the time. Bernie Sanders didn't know it at the time. This was just getting tough on crime, and it ended up being a punitive, a discriminatory, evil. But you can't find any commentary from John Conyers or others who oppose this, that this is what was going to happen. So I think there's a lot of unfairness. Now, this strikes me the same as NAFTA. Almost every economist was in favor of NAFTA. We were going to come out ahead. People, labor unions in particular, didn't like it because they didn't want to take the chance. And I remember being opposed to NAFTA. I just thought, keep the steel factories you got, and we'll work. But they were getting ready for the brand new world. And yes, we knew a whole lot of importers and corporations, including people selling our products elsewhere, were going to make a lot of money. And they had a theory that you make more cars, even though the cars from someplace else are cheaper, we'll do okay. Well, logic should have told you that all kinds of people would prefer a $15,000 car quality from Japan than they would a $25,000 car from the United States, quality or not quality. Just dollars should tell you that. So NAFTA, a bunch of the Clinton initiatives went wrong. But can I tell you again, these were not Bill Clinton's initiatives alone. The Democratic Party, in most instances, was in on this. And so this was establishment stuff. Now, let me repeat myself. I'm very forgiving. If you run your car up on the sidewalk and knock my porch down and you weren't drunk, I'm going to forgive you for it. You didn't do it on purpose. It happened. You turned the wheel the wrong way. So that's what I think about some of the Clinton initiatives. Now, we haven't talked about the good stuff where the economy rose and black folks got new jobs they never had before, got pay increases they never had before. A Clinton administration is the last time that the average person got a serious pay increase, and they got it over multiple years. I can remember it. So this idea is, and Bill Clinton must be stirring, that everything he did was evil or wrong is an extreme exaggeration. He has a mixed record like anybody else, like President Obama, okay? Is a mixed record. It's the nature of the negotiations, it's the nature of what you do, and then it is the unintended consequences. You do not know what you do, what the effects is going to be on it in 1 year, 10 years, certainly not 20 years. I don't know how to stress that. Now, certain things you know are wrong, and you know they're liable to come out bad, and the majority of people involved in them know them. But this is not true of NAFTA. This is not true of this, criminal justice bill, mass incarceration. The majority of people did not know what was going to happen. By the way, we're in the process of trying to undo some of this. You even have Speaker Ryan agreeing to it. So I think we're going to undo some of the bad elements here.
So you're from Michigan originally. What are your thoughts on Bernie's victory in Michigan?
It's called University of Michigan, Michigan State, Wayne State. My brother said he never saw so many young people vote in his life. And Bernie has been able to do that. And you watch in New York that Bernie wins Brooklyn. You know, half of Brooklyn's cool 21-year-old, 31-year-olds who think they're 21. They're all cool, progressives, and he's going to win. And he's going to win big there. And there are 3 or 4 enclaves like this, and the universities that are going to keep him from, from doing poorly. I think Hillary's going to win New York, but it's not going to be a blowout. Yesterday on one of the news programs, political news programs, a reporter said something that I knew to be true, but didn't know to be true. That he said 25,000, 27,000, 28,000 at Bernie's 3 New York rallies in the last 3 or 4 days. Half of the people are the same people. And he says that's fortitude and support. That you come out for a 90-minute talk and you have to come out an hour ahead to get your spot, so that you're spending 3 hours to hear basically the same speech over a 3 or 4 day period. So I think Bernie has the enthusiasts on his side. And, it doesn't matter in a place like Michigan where the vote was not heavy amongst the normal voters, Bernie won. And by the way, Bernie did slightly better amongst black folks in Michigan than he did elsewhere. He out-Flinted Hillary Clinton. It was fascinating. She raised the issue of the water contamination first in national debate, and I thought, how brilliant. And then Bernie jumped on board and basically convinced all kinds of people that he was going to fix the infrastructure problems with water in this country, in Michigan. So, I don't, Bernie is if he gets, he's a dog with a bone, and he can be convincing. He's going to give millions and millions of people free college. He can be very convincing. I see no path forward for him doing that in any reasonable amount of time. We'd have to change the nature of society. We'd have to become Sweden, where we spend our money on domestic issues and problems and concerns and education. The United States of America spends less than 2% of its federal money on education, and that includes the colleges, 2%. So Sweden spends, I believe, 20%. We have to become a Sweden to do what Bernie wants. And I don't know how, with this military-industrial complex, we undo what we have. And I say this to people all the time. Change takes time. So for 25, 30 years, we've been creating this college debt and not enough money for the Pell Grants. And this is a horrible process. And all of a sudden, people go, my Lord, I'm $140,000 in debt for going to a decent college. And they want this undone. Well, first, this fiscal budget cycle is already set for 17. So it's not going to happen. Now, if something unbelievable happened and Democrats took the House and took the Senate's possible, and I urge people to donate to the 6 or 7 candidates for U.S. Senate, Ohio, New Hampshire in particular, Wisconsin, who have the ability, to win those Democratic candidates, then we'll have back the House and the Senate, and then there's some possibility. I don't know how we get the House. The Senate, I see the 6, 7 seats. The House, I only see 6, 7, and that's not enough. So Bernie's offering something that cannot be done in 4 years. Cannot be. I wish I were wrong.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Are there any other concluding points you'd like to bring up for listeners?
Yeah, I think, and I say this to everybody, I think everyone should talk about their candidate in a positive light, push people, say anything they want. people think this campaign's getting nasty between Bernie and Hillary, and I don't think it's gotten nasty yet. I think it's gotten pointed, and that's fine. Hillary thinks she needs to point out his problem with guns and a few other things. He made a mistake with Sandy Hook. It sounds, and he is awful, that he doesn't think people should be able to sue the gun manufacturers. So I think what they're both saying is probably okay. Now, having said that, I think the left, the liberals, the progressives, particularly white folks, should be very careful about denigrating Hillary's voters. And Bernie Sanders has done a little of this, kind of bad-mouthing people in the South, saying some things that are really ridiculous. Hillary is winning states that she's probably not going to win in November if she's the nominee. Alabama and Louisiana and the like. And that is probably true. But Bernie's not telling the truth because he won Oklahoma and 3 or 4 of those western states that no Democrat has won since 1964. So he, there are only 6 or 7 swing states. So the Democrats have 12. I'm sorry, have 20 states, and the Republicans have 20 states, and we have New York and we have California for almost certain, which kind of puts us ahead. But then Ohio, and there are 4 or 5 states that are always up for grabs. Wisconsin, we've done well, but it's up for grabs. So he's been winning the Republican states out west. So I don't know what he's talking about. He has the same problems as Hillary. If he were to get the nomination, he would not win Oklahoma in November, same as she wouldn't win Alabama. Now, there could be a miracle, and the poor white folks could come to their senses and realize they shouldn't be voting for Republicans, but we don't know about miracles. I'm not big on miracles. So I think this kind of thing is denigrating because the South, of course, Hillary won it with huge black numbers of votes. And so it sounds like he's dismissing black folks, and he should be careful about that. But I think liberals in general should be careful about not... Black folks are pragmatists. I'm semi-pragmatist myself. We're interested in how to fix things for next fall, next year. I'm interested in what you can do for swimming pools in Providence this summer. The idea of what you can do 10 years from now, 4 years from now, or voting for somebody because they're saying the right thing, that doesn't move me. I'm interested in movement. And I think most black people are. And they believe that Hillary will do more for us in her 4 years in the White House than Bernie Sanders. And that's what a lot of this voting is about. Because Bernie's promising us the world, a brand new world. And if I believe that Bernie could deliver on it, I'd be for Bernie too. But I'm for someone who's promising me half a world and is probably going to do it.
Thank you for listening today, and please tune in for other episodes of this series as they are released by the Rhode Island Media Cooperative. You can follow along through our Facebook page or on Twitter via @RI Media Co-op.